Welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we're stepping into the shadow of literally the darkest chapter in human history. We're talking about a time when the very fabric of existence felt like it was unraveling. We're going to look at a historical event so massive and so devastating that it permanently altered the entire trajectory of mankind. So, I want you to ask yourself something. What if a disease could wipe out half the world? Just take a second to let that sink in. Look around. Imagine half of everyone you know, everywhere. Just gone. It sounds exactly like the plot of a dystopian sci-fi movie, doesn't it? It's an existential threat so large that our brains kind of struggle to even process the math of it. But the terrifying truth here, this actually happened. This isn't fiction, this is our history. Section 1. The Silent Arrival. We're talking, of course, about the Black Death, a deadly pandemic that spread across entire continents back in the 14th century. Remember, back then, there were no global news networks. There were no push notifications pinging your phone to warn you about an outbreak. People were just going about their daily lives, trading, farming, raising their families, totally blind to the tidal wave that was about to crush down on them. Emerging from the vast steppes of Central Asia, absolutely no one in Europe or the Middle East knew where this came from or even what it was. A microscopic bacteria, Yersinia pestis, was just quietly multiplying, completely invisible to the medieval eye. And that's the really crucial point. It started silently. You'd have a localized outbreak here, maybe a strange rumor from a distant port over there. In the Crimean city of Kaffa, merchants started hearing these terrifying whispers of an unseen affliction striking the surrounding armies. But, well, that silence didn't last very long. Within mere months, the quiet was replaced by total devastation. People began dying in numbers that were simply unfathomable. That silent arrival abruptly turned into a deafening roar of tragedy. Section 2. A trail of devastation. The sheer brutality of this disease was absolutely unprecedented. Victims didn't just fade away quietly. They suffered immensely. First, you get this intense fever, accompanied by shivering and a deep, aching weakness. Then came an agonizing pain that gripped the body from the inside out. And finally, the undeniable visual trademark of the plague: dark, swollen wounds known as buboes, erupting in the lymph nodes. Once those appeared, the end was almost certainly near, often claiming a life in just 3 to 5 short days. Bustling, vibrant cities rapidly turned into literal graveyards. Entire families lost absolutely everyone. So how did a nightmare like this spread like wildfire? The answer actually lies in human connection. The disease hitched a ride on the very arteries of human civilization, our trade routes. Carried by fleas on rats, it moved with terrifying speed from Asia right along the Silk Road. Picture this: October 1347. 12 Genoese merchant ships pull into the Sicilian port of Messina. The sailors aboard were either already dead or gravely ill, covered in those dark boils. The authorities ordered these death ships out of the harbor, but men, it was too late. The rats had already scurried ashore, and from there, the plague just exploded into Europe, across the Mediterranean. The very same networks designed to bring wealth and exotic goods were now importing death. And what could the 14th century world actually do to fight back? No medicine. The doctors of the time were completely baffled. They were relying on medieval practices like bloodletting, burning aromatic woods, and wearing those infamous bird-like herbal masks. Their medical knowledge was utterly useless against this microscopic invader. There was no cure, no secret remedy, no scientific breakthrough waiting around the corner to save them. The sick were basically just locked inside their homes, marked with a cross on the door, and left to their fate, leaving behind only fear. Millions upon millions of people died, and for the living, the dominant emotion, really the only emotion, was unadulterated, paralyzing panic. Just imagine waking up every single day, genuinely wondering if today was the day the shadow would fall on your home or your loved ones. Section 3. The Collapse of Society. 50%. I want you to take a moment to truly grasp that number. Estimates tell us that almost half of Europe's entire population was gone. We're talking tens of millions of souls, wiped from the face of the earth in a matter of a few short years. Entire towns were just abandoned, fields were left unplowed, and livestock wandered completely untended through ghost towns. It's a demographic collapse that is honestly almost impossible for our modern minds to wrap around. Imagine that. Just imagine it. Section 4. Humanity survives.
Now, the great paradox of the Black Death is what happened after the plague finally subsided. On one hand, the toll was absolute. Society had completely fractured. The economy collapsed as the workforce disappeared, and countless people looked up at the sky and lost their faith entirely, just unable to comprehend all that indiscriminate suffering. But out of that ash came a really undeniable outcome. Because there were so few workers left, the surviving peasants could suddenly demand higher wages. They effectively dismantled the whole restrictive feudal system of serfdom. So despite the broken economy, despite the shattered faith, and the unimaginable loss, humanity survived. We pushed through the darkest night in our history, and eventually the sun rose again, paving the way for a massive radical shift in human thought known as the Renaissance.
As we look back at the source material from this era, a really profound conclusion emerges. The Black Death was not just a disease, it was a reminder. We don't study these events just to memorize dates or numbers. We study them to understand our own place in the grand sweep of time, to recognize the enduring, incredible resilience woven right into our shared history. It was a reminder of how fragile life really is. Everything we build, everything we plan, it all hangs by a very delicate thread. It's a sobering thought for sure, but perhaps one that should make us appreciate the breath we have right now just a little bit more. It does leave us with a massive question, though. If the shadows of history return tomorrow, how would our modern world actually hold up? Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning, and never forget the shadows of our past.